guys, we're going to be working on page 100. So our first problem is to divide. I have my graph paper that's always really helpful, and this one has some writing on the bottom, but that's okay. I have 728 divided by 30. Remember, we want to do these division problems so that they're easy to do in our head. So if you're really struggling with that, that is perfectly fine. So I need to think about, well, 728 is really close to just 750, and 32 is close to 30. And I can think about quarters. I know that 3 quarters is 75 cents. So 75 divided by 3 is 25. And these zeros here would cross off evenly. Now to divide. I always like to divide in a graph paper because it helps me keep my thoughts and my work organized. So I have 728 divided by 32. Well, can 32 go into 7? No, it can't, because 32 is larger than 7. But 32 can go into 72. So 32 times 2, what would that be? 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, that gets us close. But what if I were to do 32 times 3? 96. Well, that's too much, so it has to be a 2. Now I'm going to take my multiplication and write it here. Now I'm going to subtract because dirty monkeys smell. And I need to remember to regroup because 4 is too large when we compare it to 2. So 12 minus 4 now is 8. And I have nothing left to subtract. And dirty monkeys are bad, so I need to bring down. And my thought process starts all over. How many 32s are in 88? Well, I already did some multiplication to help us. 32 times 2 is 64. That's close, but can we get closer? What about 96? 96 goes over, so it has to be 2. So now I'm going to take my 64, and I'm going to subtract. 8 minus 4 is 4. 8 minus 6 is 2. So I have 24 left over, and 2 is my quotient. To write that as a fraction, I'm going to take my remainder, 24, and put it over my divisor, 32. So my answer, my quotient, is 22 and 24 30-seconds. Now if I were to compare that to my estimate, it's pretty close. Now we're going to use estimation to help us determine if these sentences are true or false. And you're not going to need to do any kind of computation because you can look in the back of your book. 3/4 plus half is less than 1. Well, if I come to the back of my book and I find 3/4, where's my 3/4? Here it is. Wow, there's 3/4, and if I were to add half to 3/4, that's definitely going to be larger than 1 because it put me right over here. So I'm going to say that that statement is false. Now I have 1 minus 3/4 is greater than half. Well, that can't be true because I have 3/4. And I just learned that 3/4 is bigger than half. So if I have 1 and I take away 3/4, I most likely won't have half. So let's check that out. Here's my whole here. And I'm going to have my 3/4. So I'm going to go 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. It puts me back at 1/4. And I know 1/4 is less than half. So another false statement. I have 2/3 plus 1/8 is greater than half. I think that if I do this, it might be a little tricky. So I'm going to double check the back of the book. I want to get to a bigger fraction than half. So let's see if that's true. Well, here is 2/3. Oh my goodness, 2/3 already is bigger than half. And if I'm adding something to 2/3, my answer will have to be bigger than half. So another false statement. Now, just because we've had a series of false statements does not mean we should just skip this and assume it's going to be true. we need to check our work. 3 halves plus 2 sevenths is greater than 1 1/2. I feel like these two fractions are the same. And I know if I add to a fraction, it's supposed to get bigger. So let's see if that really is true. Is 3 halves the same as 1 1/2? All right, well, here's 1. And if I go to my half mark, that's what 1 1/2 looks like, which you can see here in the back of your book is already labeled 3 1/2. So for here, another false statement. Okay. This one says to use fraction pieces to help you. But here what we can do is we can use our least common multiple. So if I were to list the multiples of 2 and 4, I get 2, 4, and I'm going to stop there because that tells me my denominator needs to become 4. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and multiply. Half times what gives you a denominator of 4? 2 times what is 4? Well, 2 times 2 is 4. And what I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator because that creates 1. With 1 times 2, it's 2. So half is equivalent to 2/4. So I'm going to substitute. I'm just going to do it right here. And this denominator is already 1/4, so I don't need to do anything. Half plus 2/4 is 3/4. Now I have half plus 2/6. What does that equal? Well, I don't have a common denominator, so I need to list the multiples of the two denominators. So I have 2, 4, 6. I'm going to stop because 6 and 6 are equivalent. So I don't need to do anything with 2, 6. I'm going to take half and multiply it by some fraction to get a denominator of 6. 2 multiplied by what is 6? Well, it's 3. And what I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. 2 times 3, 6. 1 times 3, 6. Now here I'm going to substitute. 3 6 plus 2 6 is 5 6. So hard to say 6 6 6. Now I have two denominators of 8 and 2. I'm going to go ahead and list the multiples of 8 and 2. For 8, I'm going to just count 8, 16, 24. And then 2, 2, 4, 6, 8. My least common multiple is 8. 4 8 stays the same, but half needs to change. So half times something gives me a denominator of 8. Well, what's 2 times 8? It is 4. What's 4 times 1? It is 4. So my answer is, well, my substitution here is 4 8. So 4 8 plus 4 8 is 8/8, which is equivalent to 1. Now our final one here, 2/3 plus 1/6. So let's list the multiples of 3. I got 3 and 6. And 6 is my denominator because this denominator is already 6. So I'm going to take 2/3, multiply it by something to get 6. Well, what's 3 times 2? It is 6. And I'm going to multiply what I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. 2 times 2 is 4. So here I'm going to substitute. Now I have 4 6 plus 1/6 equals 5 6. Alright, moving right along. Sophia bought 3 flashlights. Each flashlight costs $5. The batteries for each flashlight cost $2. Which expression models the situation? Well, we know she has 3 flashlights. We know that each flashlight is $5. So we're doing 3 times 5. But then each flashlight needs batteries. And the batteries cost $2. So we have 3 flashlights and we're going to multiply that by 2. Now I have these two equations here. And I would take them and add them together. I would have 3 times 5 plus 3 times 2. Do I have one that works there? No, I don't. And that's perfectly okay because there's more than one way to solve this problem. But I have to go with my choices, so I got to think about it differently. Well, let's think about cost. I know one flashlight would cost $5, but I would need to buy batteries, which cost another $2. So one flashlight would be 5 plus 2. But I'm not buying one flashlight, I'm buying 3, so I would multiply by 3. So D is the correct answer. A cook needs to know, sorry. A cook needs to know the volume of his cupboards. Use the model of the cupboards to shown below to estimate the total volume of the cupboards. Well, I know volume is length times width times height, and I can't just start off with volume here because this space is the length. It's full of air. So I need to do some composite volumes. I have figure A and figure B. I need to figure out the volume of figure A, then figure B, then add the two volumes together. So let's look at this one. We have 5 times 1 times 3. Those are the dimensions of figure A, and I always write the expression out even when I'm solving for myself or can do it in my head. It just helps me to be slow and steady. Now this side of B is 3, so 3 times 4 times 1. Now we're going to solve what's inside the parentheses first, then add the two products together. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 15. 3 times 4 is 12, times 1 is 12 still. So I have 15 and 12, then I will add together to make 27 cubic feet, the volume of that cupboard. Alright, our final one. Oops, sorry guys. There are 24 classes at Lincoln School. Each has 23 students. Write an expression to model how many students go to the school, then evaluate to find the number of students at the school. So one class is 24 students. Sorry, there's 24 classes with 23 students in each class. That's going to equal, S is tricky because sometimes it looks like a 5. Let's just go with X. Now we're going to solve, and I always love to use graph paper. I think I've said that once or twice. So I have 24 multiplied by 23. Four times 3 is 12. 3 times 2 is 7. I'm going to stop here. 2 is worth 20, so I'm going to put a placeholder 0 here. And then continue. 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 times 2 is 4. Add together. Don't forget to regroup when adding. So that school is a lot bigger than Rio Vista with 552 students.